Hello and many thanks for joining us on the program. I am Imoni Amarere. We return once again to a familiar subject, the growing insecurity in Nigeria, but with particular focus on the safety of schools and students in the north of Nigeria. In broad daylight last Thursday, some daredevil bandits invaded the federal government college, Birnin Yauri in Kebbi State, and abducted a yet-to-be-determined number of students, teachers, and non-teaching staff, while killing one policeman and leaving one other student with bullet wounds. The police say the bandits snatched a van belonging to a high court judge within the town, with which they ferried their victims out of the school. This incident is coming just about 3 weeks after pupils of an Islamic school in neighboring Niger State were similarly abducted and are still in the captivity of the abductors, who are demanding an outrageous sum of over 150 million naira for their release. Birnin Yauri is about 90 kilometers from Kontagora in Niger State, where the Islamic school pupils were taken from. This latest abduction is also coming a few weeks after several students and staff of a private university, Greenfield University in Kaduna State, regained their freedom after almost 60 days in captivity, following the payment of over 180 million naira ransom by their parents, in addition to meeting other demands of the bandits. In all of the school abduction cases so far profiled and reported, including those of Katsina and Zamfara, governments have been helpless and unhelpful in securing the schools and the release of the abductees. In most of the cases, they were left to their fate and the designs of their wicked abductors. Many Nigerians are left with no option but to think that the abductions we started in April 2014 with the mass kidnap of Chibok schoolgirls by the Boko Haram terrorist group has grown into a very lucrative business enterprise for the perpetrators, even as federal and state governments appear unable or unwilling to halt the trend in its tracks. The immediate consequence is that education is in dire straits and in decline. Many schools have been forced to close over safety concerns. In fact, Kebbi State has just shut down 7 more schools, and many more are set to follow. But even more worrisome is the fact that these bandits are getting emboldened by the day, and the situation could deteriorate further as the bandits are carving spheres of influence for themselves and becoming warlords in the many ungoverned spaces in the country. As a people, we seem to have lost our humanity and have become numb as the daily numbers of those abducted and killed have become mere statistics to our ears. The response to the Birnin Yauri abduction has, however, been different. Security forces swiftly went in hot pursuit of the bandits and have so far succeeded in rescuing some of the students and teachers while killing several of the bandits. Now, could this be the new face of the offensive against banditry? Is this what President Muhammadu Buhari meant when he said government will treat the bandits in the language they understand? In Kebbi State, Governor Atiku Bagudu has also volunteered to lead a rescue mission into the bush to free the remaining abductees. We shall attempt to get across to Birnin Kebbi to bring you up to date on the situation. While here in the studio, 2 security specialists shall apprise the general state of insecurity across the country and how to tackle it. We shall also be joined by the president of the National Parents Teachers Association, which has threatened to pull students out of boarding schools. Right up to now, we shall get to meet all our guests. Stay with us. All right, let's get to meet our guests who are here in the studio. First, from my far left is Manu Yagda. Manu Yagda is a retired Navy commander and chairman CEO of Damboyi Conflict and Security Consultancy Limited, chairman Foundation for Civilian Peace in Nigeria, and a member of the Presidential Think Tank on Defense and Security. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Yagda.
Happy to meet you.
Also joining us is CSP Vandifar James, a retired police officer, former commander SARS, former head of Department Counter-Terrorism and General Investigations. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Vandifar James.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno.
And joining us virtually from his base in Kaduna is the president of the Parents Teachers Association of Nigeria, Haruna Danjuma. Thank you so much, Mr. Danjuma, for finding time to join us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Welcome. All right. We are also being joined from Birnin Kebbi, the Kebbi State capital, by our colleague, Mr. El Yakub Usman Dabai. He's a journalist with Radio France International, but who is based in Birnin Kebbi. Thank you so much for joining us. He's joining us by telephone from Birnin Kebbi. Mr. Dabai, let's begin by asking you to give us some update on the situation as at this morning. Hello, Mr. Dabai. Is Mr. Dabai there? All right, we'll try and get back to Mr. Dabai as soon as possible. But back here in the studio, gentlemen, thank you so much for finding time to join us. We should have done this a few days ago, but here we are doing it today. And the response to the attack on the FGC Birnin Yauri has been a little bit different from what has become the norm. You know, all the abductions that we have seen from schools in recent months, recent years, in recent weeks, and all of that. So, Mr. Vandifar, let's begin. Well, given the fact that these abductions have become very regular and rampant, were you disappointed that another one happened this time around, and as usual, there wasn't enough security on ground to repel these bandits?
Well, thank you. I was not disappointed because it's a thing that you can't predict when it will happen. And we anticipate, yes, it's going to happen. From intelligence, it was discovered that there was an attack within the Yauri local government. It was expected that it's still going to happen because there were news that they were going to also come back to the same location again. You would have expected enough security men, but that's to tell you the challenge security agencies are going through. The numbers are not there to cover everywhere in the country. And when you look at the topography of a federal government college, it's always a very vast institution with staff quarters, hostels, and then the classrooms are all scattered. You don't have enough policemen who can man most of these schools. You don't have soldiers also enough who can man most of these schools. Mostly it's not even their duty to stay inside the environments of institutions of that nature to guide. It's essentially the police or the civil defense. So nobody was really surprised that it happened because it's a thing that has become a norm, just as you say it. But the beauty of what has happened now is that there's been a very swift response from the security agencies to ensure that they don't settle down to start threatening for killings, start threatening for ransom and the rest of them. So because of that response, it has given them less time now to say they can now settle down where they know it's going to be comfortable for them to start calling the parents. I understand the agony the children could be going through, the parents will be going through also. But the most important thing is what the military are doing now. A proactive action by making sure that they follow them to cordon off, conduct some attacks, area defenses, and the rest of them. That has yielded some results, and that is why you have so many of them that has been released now. There will be no categorical figures as the number of students and teachers that have been taken away from the school. But since it was a pick-up van that was used in conveying them, you will expect that the number was not as much as other schools where this has happened, like the one in Niger State and the ones that happens in Katsina. So generally, I think the new approach that the military has started on is more dynamic and a better way of confronting this, because and in the long run, where you feel you kidnap and you can't get any reward for it, instead you are having some bullets coming as your reward, I think it will lessen the issues of incidences of kidnapping in most of the public schools.
Well, we do understand now from the figures that the principal of the school gave recently that 90 students are still missing. Well, altogether, 94 students were abducted, mostly senior secondary school 1 and 2, and then 4 teachers and 4 non-teaching staff. At least those are the figures we have at the moment. For the time being, we do not know how authentic these figures are. But let's quickly cross over to Birnin Yauri now, where Dabai is joining us. Mr. Dabai, thank you so much for finding time to join us. What is the situation on ground at the moment?
Well, at the moment, the situation is getting better. Yesterday, the armed forces, the military in particular, have rescued additional 3 students and a teacher, bringing the number of 3 teachers and 8 children or students that were rescued from the date of abduction till yesterday. And there was a effort of the military as well as the police, including the local vigilante people who know the terrain more than the military and the police men. So they have assisted them seriously. Yesterday, in a village called Mapuku, in Sakaba local government, particularly in Zuru Emirate, that's where the student and the teacher were rescued. And it was a battle, and the military overpowered them. But unfortunately, what happened at the FDC Birnin Yauri, we learned that there were subtle signs. The bandits some times back came and abducted one rich man. Later on again, they came and abducted some foreigners. And we learned that there was a notice pasted in the school saying that on that very day the bandits came, that they will be coming on that day. But for reasons best known to the school authorities and probably the authorities concerned, they didn't allow the school to be closed until it happened. Fortunately, there were vigilante, police, and military across from Birnin Yauri to Rijau in Niger State, to Zuru in Kebbi State, as well as Sakaba, which is their route to one of their bases in one village called Bagega in Zamfara State. So they were cut off on their way back, going back to their base in Bagega. That was around Mapuku and Kankolo side. They were overpowered. Some local eyewitnesses said they saw more than 100 dead bodies of kidnappers or bandits that were overpowered by the military, local vigilante groups. So it's kudos now that we're getting the ground on fighting banditry in Kebbi State. A lot of bandits, unconfirmed sources say more than 250 of them were killed between that Birnin Yauri to Zuru and Sakaba local government areas.
Now, you just spoke about the local vigilantes and how much assistance they are giving the military and the Air Force in this effort to rescue these children. How equipped are these local vigilantes?
Well, they are partially equipped. There is one small gun they usually call Wagila. They usually it's deadly because it can even destroy a tree. They have their own local weapons. They are manufactured at home. They are the ones that they are using. And they actually supported the military. They are working within the ambit of the military. Until they are in the villages, they knew the terrain. They knew where the bandits usually pass through. Initially, when the bandits were getting a field day, because at that time they were not involved, they were not invited, they were not involved in the fight. So the military force was a little bit overpowered, you can say, or they are inactive at that time. They were not participating fully. Not until this abduction happened, and we were happy that the military swung into action. And it was a field day. It was a field day for the military and the vigilantes. At this moment, we learned that they chased the remaining remnants to one local government near Kebbi called Mariga, particularly in some villages called Kombashi and Kakehu. That's where they have now moved. They couldn't move back to their base in Zamfara State. That is Bagega.
All right, so it's suspected that these bandits actually came in from Zamfara State, and their intention was to take these students and staff of the school back to Zamfara State. But now they've been cut off.
Yeah, that Bagega, as many of them used to say, and there have been many one man called Idedogo, and whose picture has been going viral on social media. He is the leader of that camp. And most of the time, these bandits usually come from that axis. They pass through some villages in Donkuwasabu and the Sakapa local governments of Kebbi State before moving through to one village called Sabon Garin Ushe in Zulu local government, where they proceeded through the mountains to Rijau and finally to Birnin Yauri. That is Ingaski local government, even though it is closer to Yauri, but it belongs to one local government called Ingaski. So their usual route is they wanted to come back. Well, some of them were already destroyed before coming back. A little, that's why the casualty or the number of students rescued and the teachers couldn't be ascertained. Because we learned that along the way, the vehicle got spoiled, as one student was explaining over the media. And some of the students ran away, took refuge, some returned to their homes. And since this is a federal government college, some people might have gone back to their residence. That's why the number of students that were missing couldn't be ascertained. And even the numbers of the students in the hands of the bandits couldn't be ascertained because of this lack of coordinated number of student abduction and moving to the bushes. All
right, Mr. Dabai, please stay with us. Let us explore further here. Mr. Yagda, you just heard an on-the-spot report now from that. What the indication is that there may have been a notice given to the school by these bandits that they were really going to come. Yet, it appears that either the security forces or government did not take that serious.
Thank you very much. Personally, I don't believe in window dressing. Now, from what you just heard from Yauri, that means even the position of these bandits are known. We receive this information from different angles. Good. If the position of these bandits are known, why do we have to wait until when they go and attack a school before we react? That is the big question. That's another thing is, we know where these bandits are coming from. Why do we have to allow the bandits to go and attack school before we react? We are not reactionary. We sit down, then the bandits will bring an attack, then we react. That's one thing. Let me tell you something. Unless the security operative changes their mode of operation, I bet you this banditry will continue. Go and interview any bandit. There's one thing he will tell you. As I'm talking to you now, we have spoken to about 3,000 of them who are ready to surrender their arms. But they don't trust the military, they don't trust the police, they don't trust the SS, they don't trust civil defense. Because each of these, the bad elements in these organizations have already cheated these people. I will tell you a typical example. There's this Fulani man in Kwara State. Police went and arrested him. They took him to Obomasho. from Obomoshore straight to Kaduna, Constitution Road, from Constitution Road to Rigachukun. And this Fulani man, he did not commit offense. They only suspected his brother, not him. And then they called themselves, those who took them to Kaduna, they said they are Abduction boys. They collected 3 million naira from this Fulani man before they released him. Now we complained to the IG. And the IG in turn sent the complaint to DG CDI. I mean, SID. What do you call it?
SIB.
SIB. Now, in order to go and call those Fulani people from Kwara to come and testify, the same people that collected 3 million naira went and threatened that if they come and testify, they are going to indict them that they are armed robbers, they are kidnappers, they are this and that. And these Fulani people refuse to come, as I'm talking to you now. Up to now, the case is still standing. I will give another typical example. There is this Fulani man in Ado Ekiti. His son was accused of kidnapping. The police went there, arrested the man, and then collected 70 cows. Now they complained. The police, I mean, the Fulani people complained about the cows that were collected. Later they begged, and then they released boys. But there's no talking about the 70 cows. The 70 cows have entered voicemail. I will give you another example. There are some soldiers, 2 soldiers, that even if you like today, we can produce them. Each time they go out and get these Fulanis with their cows, they arrest them. When they arrest them, they scare them, pursue these people away. Then they loaded these cows and then into trailer, go and sell them illegally.
So they are doing their own cattle rustling.
Cattle wrestling. Now, each of these Fulanis that they collected their properties, what will happen? They are left with nothing. And they said over their dead body, they will tell their children to go and join the banditry. That was the mistake that happened in Borno in 2013. When they changed JTF, Joint Task Force, and then hand over the operation to 7DIF. Each time there was a bomb blast in Maiduguri, soldiers would just go and surround the whole area. Anybody between the ages of 12 and 36 would be arrested and then go and waste them. At a point, the elders of Borno discovered that military are killing their boys more than the Boko Haram. Then they complained to Jonathan. No action was taken. Then people inside Maiduguri, they got and said, okay, they can let their children go and join Boko Haram. That was what exacerbated Boko Haram in Borno State. And if the operatives do not change the way they behave, in one organization we have some bad elements. And the bad elements in the military, the bad elements in the police, the bad elements in the SS, the bad elements in the civil defense are the ones foiling this problem. If you like be killing these bandits every day, as long as you continue cheating their relation, their parents, they'll continue to join it. So we have to look at it in another angle. Today, as I'm talking to you, we have over 3,000 Fulanis who are ready to surrender. But they don't trust the military. They don't trust the police. They don't trust the SS. They don't trust the civil defense. The only organization that they want, if there's any organization that they want to use, maybe is the Civilian Foundation for Civilian Peace, which is a civil organization, which is neutral. In December or November last year, about 800 Fulanis came out with their arms in Kaduna State, about 700 in Nasarawa State, about 70 in Zamfara, about 120 in Niger State. They wanted to give their arms, but they were not sure of their safety. Then we said, okay, let us use Kaduna State as a pilot stage. We wrote to the Kaduna State government, inform DSS, inform IGP, inform NSA, that these people want to use Kaduna State as a pilot project. These people will come out with them. They're not looking for any money. They're not looking for any exchange. All they wanted protection, so that those their colleagues in the bush will not come and kill them. And we wrote it. None of these people that we wrote responded, as I'm talking to you now.
All right, we'll come back to some of the issues that you have thrown up, but Let's quickly go to Kaduna and talk with Mr. Haruna Danjuma, who is the president of the PTA, Parent Teachers Association, which has, in fact, last week threatened to withdraw students from the schools, from the boarding schools across the northern states, especially. Mr. Danjuma, what would you say is the way forward here? Is the withdrawal of students from schools the right thing to do at this moment? We see that some state governments are actually already shutting down the schools.
Well, thank you very much. Like you rightly said, I believe, according to what you heard from the last speaker and some speaker before him, you will agree with the fact that parents are still having that fear of, having leaving their children in the school, in the boarding schools, because it is quite known that we quite agree with our children are going to be safe when we, enroll them in boarding schools. And we know it is the responsibility of the school administration to protect and secure the life and property of our children. We cannot just go and start guarding our children in school. A school where we have over 1,000 enrollment of the students, you don't expect the parent of those 1,000 students to go and keep guarding their children there. It is a known fact that the government has taken the responsibility of protecting the life and at the same time imparting knowledge into our children. That is what makes us feel very much comfortable for allowing our children to be in the boarding schools and school generally. It's popular to hear from the government itself that they don't have enough security to secure the lives and property of our children and the teachers, of course, in our boarding school and general school in the country, be it boarding or private. I mean, be it public, private, or faith-based school. Because we have them in categories. We have public school where we have all our children, we enroll them in school. We also have private school for those who can afford to take them to private school, either boarding or day schools. That one is left for them to make a choice, or that they have the capacity to pay for their children's education. And we also have faith-based school, like the one of Niger State. You know, you will agree that for those that have taken their children into that Islamic school, there are people with vulnerable children. Their parents cannot afford to go for that boarding school, the federal or state school. So you see, it is a contractual agreement between the government that own the school, the private school that own the school, and whoever, to accept our children as a student of their respective institutions and to take care of them, protect their lives, give them education, and do all that are needed. See, the issue of child-friendly, water, toilet, whatever. So we agree to that, and we get them on, and we go back to our respective houses, living with our two eyes, closed in those days. But nowadays, you hardly can see a parent that sleep with two eyes closed while his child in the boarding school. This is exactly what's happening in Nigeria now. And when we heard from the government that the government have said clearly through the media, we heard it that they don't have enough security personnel to guard our schools. And that is what NAFTAN, the National Parent Teacher Association, started making arrangements, because we came to agree that, in Borno State, Maiduguri, during this Boko Haram issue now, the government have no option other than to engage the services of Mbanga, the volunteers. So also in Yobe, Adamawa. Then NAFTAN come to understand, even in Kaduna State, where I belong, these vigilance services, officers, the Mbanga, the Hunters Association are contributing enough to protect our children.
Mr. Danjuma, do you think that...
So in the situation where we have here there in Yauri, it is very sympathetic. So that was what made us to say, okay, it is now time for us to sit and whether to allow the existing, our children to remain in the school or to withdraw them back to our affected houses. I know it is not even safe for us in our houses with the situation on the ground, but we have no option other than to leave them there, taking that risk, because we had from the school authority, reliably from the branch chairman of the PTA of Kebbi State, that at an early stage, those bandits have sent a letter notifying the school authority that they are going to attack the school. And all we come to understand later on that the school management, or rather the head of school, the director principal, had reported the same case to the security outfit, and which they managed to have just about 20 policemen there. Fully whether these people, whatever they're attacking in numbers. That's exactly what happens. And how can that made us feel comfortable? So that's why we say, well, we don't have any option other than, but we have to sit and meet with the National Council of the Association and reach the state also before we arrive at whether to allow our children to remain in the school or to withdraw them. And now that before we arrive at that, even the government themselves, or agreed to some schools. The government have closed some schools. Send back our children, or rather call us to come and collect children.
Oh, okay, Mr. Danjuma, do you think, given the situation that you have painted, particularly the situation in Birnin Yauri, do you think that perhaps if we turn these schools temporarily into day schools might be a temporary solution to this? Now, because in the case of Birnin Yauri, this abduction took place in broad daylight. I mean, in the afternoon when students were in school. So even if they were day students and they come to school from home every day, they could still, this attack could still happen.
You see, if you are talking of temporarily make the school to be day school, how many of the students that can get accommodation around the community? These are the schools whereby a unity school, whereby some students are drawn from other states, from Lagos, from Ebonyi, from Enugu, from Maiduguri, from wherever. That's what made it unity schools. And how can that be possible to make it a day? What we gave an option at an early stage, right from Maiduguri issue. We said, okay, let those schools, boarding schools, living in rural areas, mobilize all the students there to fit them in the boarding school within the headquarters of each state. Put them there. That's what is happening in Kaduna State now. That is what is happening now in Kaduna State. Most of the boarding schools in the rural areas are moved to the center, the headquarters of the zones. Some in Zaria, some in Kaduna, some in Kafancha. That is where we will get the concentration of the security. And of course, the volunteers to guard our children. But if you are talking of, mobilizing only 20 police to guard a whole boarding school of government secondary school, a unity school for that matter, and they expect, safety to be in that place, it's not possible. And you have heard what my brother there have said about, some bad eggs in the military. And again, sir, what is the use of the intelligence that we have in officers, the police, the SSS, the GSS, and the military intelligence? What are they using? Right from the day they heard about this notice, informing the school authority that they are coming to attack our school, Yauri schools. I expect the security personnel to map out the strategy from every angle to see and inform and know the level, know the level of the bandits that are in that team going to attack, so that they can inform where the nature of reinforcement is needed even if it means to use a jet to attack those people on the ground, because they went on a motorcycle.
Yeah, that's what Mr. Yagda refers to about being proactive in
Yes.
dealing with this. And that's a very critical question, Mr. Van der Vaart.
Yeah.
The question of what we do with intelligence when we do have it. In this case, notice was given by the bandits. And from the accounts that we have received, even from the governor of Kebbi State, they appear to have been, they came in their hundreds. They came in very large numbers.
Yeah.
So how did that happen? That, I mean, 100, 200 people, 300 bandits would come from nowhere in motorcycles, in vehicles, storm a school, yet we had enough intelligence before them, prior to the invasion, and nothing happened.
Yes, it is a worrisome situation that in all the attacks that you receive, you discover that intelligence has always been there. The problem has always been the interagency cooperation to make sure this thing has been done the way it should be done. Now, I am not at the theater front. I don't know the kind of command instructions that is passed out to the officers on ground. But in service, you can't just move to counter something because you have received intelligence. And when you look at the mode of attack by the bandits, they're always coming in very large numbers. And this one is the phase that they come in broad daylight, pass through a lot of villages. And I'm surprised to hear now that everybody, even the villagers, knows exactly where their command system is on these bandits. Now, for the intelligence to collapse this way is exactly what the president also re-echoed in Borno when he went to visit the soldiers at the front lines, where he told them to have the synergy together.
Now, ironically, this attack took place on the day the president was visiting Borno.
Yes. Now, where this synergy is not there, there's no way you can have enough manpower to garner to make sure that you confront the bandits when they are coming. Another thing is that if the intelligence were there, and just as it is, and they give a date, you expect that there should have been area patrols by the Air Force to ensure that they nip them before they could get into the town, because Air Force can climb to very higher heights and make sure they see beyond where you can see from the trenches. But unfortunately, just as we said, the interagency collaboration, I think, is not working in this context, and that is why bandits can move through villages. It can't take less than 1 hour for them to move from Zamfara to where they came to operate and go back. And yet, Air Force was not there to kind of give the air support to the men on ground. And where you don't have that, there's no way you can contain 20 policemen in the school. Not all of them could be armed, and maybe some of them are women. You know this way. There's no way you can withstand the firepower of 150 people coming into an operation of that nature, because for them to be bold enough to enter that school in the afternoon means they were well armed and had enough ammunition to waste. And that is why they were able to do that and do it effectively and go back. So I think Air Force here should be the lead in trying to make sure that they provide the air patrols, dictate most of these movements, and bomb them out so that they won't have the tenacity to be moving in the daytime the way they did to get into schools and cause this kind of mayhem. Unless the president is very hard on this, and the service chiefs should be able to sit down and talk together so that there can be collaboration, they can be sharing intelligence, and ensure that when you receive notes of this nature, you don't just treat them with levity. If you have a note pasted in the school that we are coming, that should be enough to kind of garner a lot of fear in the minds of the students. So even those who are there today, by the time you bring them back, their psychological stability may no longer be there for them to be really able to sit down in the school and read. And at the end of the day, you still discover that just as the president is saying, or the PTA, he's saying that they will shut down the schools. The state government has gone ahead to do this already. That has altered the calendar of the students who are there in these schools. And at the end of the day, by the time the students are going back, I bet you discover that the cost of education is going to increase, because most principals will not start adding the fees for security. And they will not want to hire also vigilantes that can provide enough security for them instead of relying solely on government. And that is not too heady for a system if you really want to do that. If you come to what Commander said, you have bad eggs within the system. And even when you have the intelligence and you tell them, most of them may still want you to pay them before they can able to process it to the appropriate authorities. Until we are able to live above boards as security agencies, we may not give the needed security that the country wants. Because we don't have to be reactive. we should take the battle to those who are planning, and those who are planning to attack us, because it's the same mistake we keep making in Borno State. Every day you hear the Boko Haram coming to attack the military formations, and here army has repaired an attack on military formation. It has happened over 20 times. It's not a good omen for security architecture of a country. I think we should be able to go back and look at the training manuals of our military institutions and the police and see how we can be more proactive instead of reactive. If we don't do this, we keep taking in a lot of casualties, and the civilians will be the worst off for this. So I think the only solution we can do is for the president to be very hard on these service chiefs to make sure that they share intelligence, sit down and work on it, so that actions of this nature can be done promptly and proactively. That's the only way we can be able to save the students from going back to schools and give confidence to those who want to read.
All right, let's see if we can speak with Yakub Usman Dabai, who is with us from Birnin Yauri. Usman Dabai, what are the chances of rescuing the remaining students and teachers alive, given the fact now that these bandits now know that security forces are on their tail?
Well, the chances is not that much because nobody even knows where they are. There is no any intelligence report coming to tell us that this is where the bandits are and this is where the students are. As I said, some who are rescued at Makuku, that's on their way back to their base in Bagega and Zamfara State. The synergy, like we've been saying, that the intelligence report is very poor. And I think the state created this fatal environment for its citizens. I will recall that for the past 2 years, somewhere between 2018 to 2020, the Zulu Emirates, which has maybe a population of retirees, the armed forces, about 60,000, they volunteered and defended that area for 2 years. The bandits were unable to pass through that axis. So last year, the IT, the former IT, the DGSS, and several security agencies came to Zuru and told the volunteers to drop their arms to stop fighting the bandits. And immediately they stopped fighting the bandits, they encroached into Kebbi State. They, in fact, over 1,000 villages were evacuated. And more than 600 people were killed between the Nkwasego and Sakaba local governments. The only synergy, the only effort the military did was that of just 3 or 4 days ago. But all throughout the days, the bandits will come. There was a village called Gaya in the Nkwasego local government. The bandits came in, spent 4 hours. They collected all the chickens in that village. They asked the women to cook for them. They had a very sumptuous meal of chicken, and no effort, no military, no firepower, no air power, nothing, because they were told to drop their weapons, the vigilantes. And that gave room for the movement of these bandits. They started coming in gradually and started crossing over. So it was during maybe last week, the Zulu people decided enough was enough. So they joined hands with the military. They came out, over 1,000 of them. That's when they were able to overpower some of the advanced party of the vigilance, of the bandits who kidnapped those students from Yauri. On their way back, they waylaid them at one village called Sabon Garin-Ushi. There were unconfirmed reports said they killed over 150. And together with the military, they fought them in Mokuku, Nkulu, Sakaba, and Shambo areas. That's why the battle is now taking place. And they have moved, they've changed the bandits now. They are moving into Niger State. We hope that the Niger State will collaborate or will react the way the Kebbi State side of the security reacted. Otherwise, they might regroup, or some will come from somewhere and come back to them. But certainly the route back to their main base in Zamfara State has been cut off. That's the beauty of it. But only God knows reasons why the security chief, the state government, everybody came and told them to get weapons. We provide security for you, and they did not provide. And that was what gave
That's most unfortunate, because it appears that the people were taking their own security into their hands, and then government said, no, we do it for you, and government has failed to do it.
Yeah, that is it. For 2 years, for 2018 to 2020, the bandits couldn't come into Kebbi. They couldn't come into Kebbi until 2020, somewhere in June last year. They said, drop the weapons, and they did. They obeyed the government, and eventually it gave room for this. But all the same, now it is a reawakening call, and that's why you can see the negligence. Again, only 21 policemen were drafted to FGC Yauri, where there was a paper, a written letter pasted in the school, and the students kept complaining to the teachers and the authorities. See, we are making counter, and it stayed there for 21 days. And they did nothing until they came. They came in the morning between 10 and 11 a.m. They did what they did. So when they left, all the policemen that were there were fighting.
Very brazen attack, as it were. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Dabai. Thank you. Mr. Yagda, you have heard everything he has said.
Very damaging.
Yes.
Very damaging statement.
Yes. So, I mean, when this situation, when you have this kind of situation on your hands, as he has related, what should the people be doing?
I think, in my own personal opinion, the attack in Yauri, they were informed. I had expected the principal, because if you say you would depend solely on government, this will be the result. I think next time when they have such an information, it is better for them to dispatch the students before they come. Because you have an information that they are coming to attack, and you have not seen reinforcement from the security forces, and you still left the students in the school. To do what? The best
to write exams.
Yeah, but you have to dispatch them, because life is more than the exam. If you fail to write your exam this year, next year you can write the exam. But this one, you've seen it boldly that these people are coming. And this is not the first school. They have been saying it to different schools. And whatever they write a letter, inform the school, they'll go and then carry out the act. So from past experience, the moment a principal receives that type of information, and he does not see any reinforcement of security forces, the best is for him to dispatch the students. I think that's the wisest way.
Are these people, these bandits, are they really Nigerians?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, let me tell you something. No armed robber will enter your house and rob your house without an insider. It is true. We have a lot of their commanders that are not Nigerians. But most of them, if you arrest 100 of them, you discover that 70, 80 of them are Nigerians. As I told you earlier, their parents, their relations were frustrated because of the action and inaction of the security forces. So because of that, they allowed their children to go and do whatever they want to do it. That is as bad as that. They allowed their children to go and do it. You can see, bandits cannot come from Niger or from Boso, enter Nigeria, carry out an operation without an insider. But because they have an insider, when these people come, in most cases, when you look at it, in most cases, those who come from outside, most of them, they are the commanders. Those of us in Nigeria, those of them in Nigeria, they are the people perpetrating this act. So, what I want government to do, number one, if you look at the population of the police, look at the population of the armed forces, they say we are about 200 million people in Nigeria. The total number of military are not more than 200 to 250,000. By the time you divide, that means you will have about one military man to about how many thousand civilians. The number is inadequate. But that is on the political side. Because as a chief of army staff, or chief of naval staff, or chief of air staff, they will find it very difficult to go and tell Mr. President, we need about 200,000 people from to be recruited so that we beef up our armed forces. They'll find it very difficult. Because they normally find it very difficult to talk to their commander-in-chief. So whatever they write it through books and they pass it through the normal channel. And bureaucracy, we have some interest. You can write something today, till tomorrow you will not get it. As I'm talking to you now, Nigerian Air Force doesn't have a single troop carrier. Nigerian Air Force, they need UAVs, downstream UAVs. They don't have. They don't have mobile carriers. So you discover that they are handicapped. If they say they will write it, go and say, okay, go and write it. And by the time they write it, before it goes through this office to that office,
but the political leadership or see these things on a day-to-day basis. And I'm sure they do a need assessment from time to time on some of these issues.
You are right.
So do they need to be told? Do they need to be pressured by the service chiefs or by the commanders before they realize that this is the way to go?
I might be wrong. But let me tell you something. Anything you ask for from the politicians, if the person you are asking to do that something for me, if he doesn't have any gain, he will not act. It's as simple as that.
That's unfortunate. Let me turn to Mr. Danjuma again now. Mr. Danjuma, the schools in the north, education generally in the north is in dire straits. It's in real trouble. For you as a parent and the president of the PTA, because we are wearing two caps here now, you are representing the parents, you are representing the teachers. The interest is the interest of the entire society. They say it takes a community to bring up a child, to mold a child. So what do you think is the way forward right now on this issue?
On this issue, the way forward is, like we've been saying, we've been requesting the government to do at state level and at the federal level also, even at the local government level. Every school that are cited in the rural areas should move the student of that school to the urban areas and then pick them in our school in the urban areas. And government who are responsible to protect and secure the lives of our teachers, students, and even the non-teaching staff, to bring in additional or more or enough security personnel. And at the same time, allow parents to contribute their quota by sitting a negotiation with the volunteers, other Mbanga, other Hunters Association, which we have started having a meeting with them at Abuja. Last week we met through our delegation, they met and decided, they have not yet concluded. But we are here to hear from the government what to do. Because since they have mentioned that they don't have enough security personnel to man our school, so we have no option other than to think otherwise. And we do. And talking about the next option I've mentioned, I've said it down, to move all the students, be it boarding or day school, from the urban areas into the rural, the rural areas into the urban areas, put them in our boarding school. For those that are in the day school, let the parents find an accommodation for them. That's what has been happening. In those days, you can have a child, in my village where I speak primary in 60s. So we have students from a distance where their parents bring them to our village and then go through the district head and source accommodation for them for the period they attend that school. So why not government to allow or to move? In fact, shutting of school is not a priority. It's not what we would like most, because we don't want a situation whereby the issue of listening is being disrupted because of this issue now.
All right.
Let them be moved out of that area.
Thank you very much, Mr. Danjuma. Thank you for your time. We do appreciate your contributions. CSP Van der Vaal, what will be your last word here? 30 seconds.
Well, my last word is that all hope is not lost. The military should better now become more proactive in approach to both the insurgency and the banditry, and work with the locals to get good intelligence and act on it. And they should take up the fight so that we can be safe.
Mr. Yagda.
Well, Nigerian government should have an inside look at the structure of the security outfits in this country. Very important.
Thank you so much. All right. Well, that's what we're going to be drawing the curtain today. We want to thank our guests, those of them who joined us virtually from Kebbi, from Kaduna, and right here in the studio, CSP Vandifer James, retired, former commander, SARS, former head of department, counter-terrorism, and general investigations. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And, of course, Manu Yagda, a retired Navy commander, chairman and CEO of Damboyi Conflict and Security Consultancy Limited, a chairman Foundation for Civilian Peace in Nigeria, and a member of the presidential think tank on defense and security. Thank you so much for your time. And of course, Yakub Usman Dabai is a journalist with Radio France International, who is based in Birnin Kebbi, in Kebbi State. He joined us via telephone to give us an update on the situation on ground right here. Thank you so much, Mr. Dabai, for your time.
Thank you.
And of course, Mr. Haruna Danjuma is the president, Parents Teachers Association of Nigeria. He joined us virtually via Zoom from his base in Kaduna. Thank you so much. And for you, our viewers there, we want to thank you for investing your time with us. And as they say, security is everybody's responsibility. Now, tell somebody who will tell somebody when you see something that is unusual happening around you and in your locality. Bye for now.